Welcome to page 158 of Anatomy Coloring Book. This is Dr. Stephen Harkins, the female reproductive system. The male reproductive organ was the testes, and the female reproductive organ is the ovary, the ovaries. And they are found on the posterior abdominal or posterior pelvic wall. And they produce the egg or the ovum, the ova, which is the reproductive cell for females. Sperm comes and meets the egg or the ova and fertilizes it, and it becomes the human fetus. So, what is that process, and what are the female organs? The ovary. The ovary is connected to the uterine or fallopian tubes. And the fallopian tubes carry the ova, the ovum. Ova is plural, ovum is singular. Into the uterus through the uterine or fallopian tubes. The uterus is this structure here, which the ovum attaches itself to, and where the sperm from the male travel into to fertilize the egg. So the uterus, and of course the vagina is the opening and the pathway for the sperm. It is the pathway for the sperm to travel, and it accepts the male penis for sperm to travel. So the vagina is here, the wall of the vagina. Now, from the lateral view, here is your ovaries, here, your fallopian tubes, traveling to the uterus. Of course, the uterus here kind of folded forward here, and the interior walls of the uterus here, and the vagina here. So the egg, the ova, will travel down into the uterus as the sperm travels in this way to the uterus. And they will meet somewhere inside the uterus or inside the fallopian tube even. The uterus lies in front of the rectum. The rectum is part of your large intestine here, and opens at the anus. And of course, this is the end products of digestion run through here, the large intestine and the rectum. In front of the uterus and the vagina lies the bladder. The bladder and the urethra in the bladder, where urination occurs. And those are the internal organs of the female reproductive system. The external genitals of the female reproduction are called together, have a name called the vulva. Collectively, they are called the vulva. And all of these structures facilitate reproduction with a partner. So let's start with the labium majus, or the labia majora, or major, the labia major. This is, labia means lip. And so this is the outer sort of layer or lip of the vagina called the labia majora. And from the perineal view, the superficial view, the outer lip, it's the labia majora is fatty, made of a lot of fatty tissue, and starts from the anterior here and proceeds posterior, where it just sort of melds into the skin of the perineal region. The perineum is this region underneath, in between your legs. And so when we refer to perineum or anything perineal, we're talking about the area between the legs. Again, the left labia major, and sort of just blending into the skin of the perineum here, where it is well defined in the anterior and on the sides. It sort of fades away and blends into the skin of the perineum. Next is the labia minora, labium minus. Minor means smaller, so the smaller lip, and that's inside here, the minora. Now this one is not fatty filled, like the majora, and you can see, in sense of the word, it is smaller than the labia majora. But the labia minora actually extends farther into, in which we'll talk about in a second, actually extends up and around, and also underneath this structure here called the clitoris. The clitoris is a sensitive area and highly vascularized. It is covered by this clitoris is right here, but it is covered by a sort of layer of the labia minora, labia minor here. And this covering of the clitoris is called the prepuce, or the prepuce. And it also lies underneath the clitoris as well, in an area called the frenulum. So the labia minora is more than just a sort of lip layer. It actually surrounds and envelops the clitoris. The clitoris has a body, and a glans similar to the penis. The crus is also similar to the penis as well, in that it is attached to the pubic bone here, and is also similar because it, as I said, becomes vascular and flush with blood when stimulated, and the clitoris becomes rigid. The bulb of the vestibule is analogous to the penis as well, in that it becomes flush as well. It's vascularized and becomes flush with blood and becomes rigid, and also presses inward during sexual intercourse and during stimulation. The vestibule is the name for the opening, like vagina. Both words mean, well, vestibule means a space or an opening. A vagina means an opening as well, but this is the vestibule of the vagina, this opening here, the open area here. And for what is contained within the vestibule, which is the urethral orifice. This is the urethra, where urination occurs from the bladder here. The urethral orifice, and of course the vaginal orifice. Now, during development, a hymen develops, which is sort of a layering, a thin membranous layering or covering, let's use a different color, surrounding the vaginal orifice. And what happens is, after first sexual activity, the hymen breaks. It's a thin membrane, and there may be, into adulthood, left a sort of layer of the hymen remaining. And that's what's shown in light blue here. Attached to the outer layer of the uterus is this parietal peritoneum. It's this layer surrounding and enveloping the organs of the abdomen and pelvis. This layer here, this thin layer surrounding, you see surrounding the colon, and then here surrounding the uterus, attaching to the uterus. And just enveloping everything inside the abdominal and pelvic cavity. So in that way, the uterus is attached to the other organs and to the posterior wall here. It is also attached through this broad ligament here and by what is called the round ligament.